Okay, Shalom. Good evening, everyone. We are snowed in over here in New York, and we're going to start from the Gemara on Yudal and Aleph on towards the bottom. We stopped yesterday smack in the middle of Chana's Tfilos. We're in the middle of talking about how we know Psukim Rayas that all the Nevi'as, all the Shiva Nevi'as, how each one's how we know that they're Nevi'as. So that's the last one we did was Chana, where she prophesied that anyone who was anointed, any king that is anointed with a Karen, his malchus is going to be Mekoyim, and anyone who's anointed with a jug is not going to be Mekoyim. So it says David and David and Shlomo Shemshach B'Karen Shemshach B'Malchus Shal Yehu Shemshach B'Pach Leinu Shemshach B'Malchus. That's what we're up to. Ein Kadesh Kashem. So the next part of it tefillah is Ein Kadesh Kashem Ein Biltecha Amar Rav Yehuda Bar Manasseh Al Tikri Biltecha Ela Levalei Secha. No one, not obviously, it also means, and there's no one besides you, but it also means that no one's going to outlast you. What does that mean? I say a person makes something and it could outlast him. The Baruch Hu will outlast everything. So therefore, whatever he made will perish at some point, and he will be forever. There is no artist like a Kadosh Baruch Hu. Adam tzartzor al gavei kaisa in yachol atul baruch hu neshama kram ubnei mayin. A person could draw a picture on a wall, and no matter how realistic it looks, it will never have any functionality. It will never have any organs inside of it. Akash Baruch Hu tzar tzura b'soich tzura. Akash Baruch Hu makes a image inside of an image. Umeitlva ruach neshama kram mayim. Akash Baruch Hu puts a fetus inside of a woman, and gives it all these functionalities. Akash Baruch Hu's an artist like no other. Abigail. Now we're up to Abigail. Abigail is in the Nevi'ah. How we know the Chsiva Haya Hi Recheves Al Chamar. This is a very geschmack story. She's riding in the mount. She's riding on a donkey. The says the Yered is B'Seisar. She comes from the hidden part of the mountain. B'Seisar Minahar Mibayla. What do I care which part of the mountain? The fact that she's from the hidden part of the mountain makes a difference. Amar Bashmuel Alitz Kedam Haba Menastarm. She came to ask David Melech Anida Shaila, and Damnida comes from a star from a hidden place in the body. Not to down the harasa. So we have to know a little bit of a backstory over here. Novel, her husband, Abigail's husband was Novel, and he was not a nice person. David Melech sent messengers to go get food for his army, and he told them to go fly a kite. He said, "Who's this David guy? I don't know him. I don't care." And he's married Machas. David was just anointed king then, and he had an issue with Shaul, and he needed support, and he asked Novel for food, and he blew him off. So he's Mischai ben Nafshay. So and as soon as Abigail knew that David Melech was going to kill her husband, she went to go beg Rachamim. So this is how she did it. So he showed her. She showed him Damnida. Amrullah. She said to her, "V'chiroyin dam layla. Am I allowed to check Damnida at night?" Amrullah. You just were down my husband Lamisa. You can't do that at night either. Amrullah. He said to her, "Ma'ir b'machos. He's the Ma'ir b'machos. Tzarich l'medanye. L'medanye. I don't have to be down him. I can just kill him." Now Tysus points out that that's not 100% true. They don't. This idea of being done at night, you don't have, but they definitely have. There has to be a bezdin. There is a bezdin. So he brings multiple rights. Amrullah, she said to him, "Adayin shol kain v'lo yatzar tivach ba'olam." They didn't post in all the news outlets that you're the king yet. Shaul's still around. He's still saying that he's in charge. So you have to forgive him that he didn't know that you're the king. Amrullah baruch tamech. He's masking to his Sarah, to her svara, uberucha at, and you are mevorach. Asher kalisini. You saved me from coming to bloods. Damim tarti mashma. Damim is not just one blood of killing her husband. It's actually two different types of bloods. So what does that mean? When she dismounted the donkey, she exposed herself accidentally, and David Melech saw her, and such a taiva gripped him that he quickened his pace to reach her gimel parsas. And he had the taiva the whole time, and he wanted. So the woman is going to state the following back and forth that's not overtly in the pasuk. Amallah hishmeini hishami li. Literally means listen to me, but it's a euphemism for tashmish. Amallah, she said to him, do not let this be to you a stumbling. So this is where her neviah comes in. So Zois Mechlad Ika Achriti Umani Umasid Bathsheba. The story of Bathsheba was considered a stumbling for David and Melech, even though the Gemara, I think it's in Shabbos, says Even though it's a mistake to say that David Melech sinned, we still see in Tehillim itself, he said that we can't give him teichachas on something that he has to deal with. That's what she was referring to. And she says, "Don't worry, your nefesh is going to you're going to have Gan Eden, and when she left him, she said to him, Hashem is going to make it good for you, and don't forget about me. You know, we have people say, like, when you make it to the top, don't forget about us little guys. When a woman's talking, she's weaving also. In other words, a woman could be very conniving and calculated and setting herself up for future relationships. The a goose walks straight, but the eyes are on the side. So a woman's also when she could be in a relationship and still be looking to see what's going on by in case this doesn't work out. So again, okay, this is how. So we saw that Abigail and Neviah from the fact that she foresaw the mess of Bathsheba. The said the people. Chilki was the king, I think. Cholda for Eitzah. In fact, the Yirmiyah, hey, how could she give Nevuah in a town? How could she set up shop in a place where Yirmiyah was? Amri Beirav, Mishmid Rav, Cholda Karavas, Yirmiyah, Yirmiyah wasn't Makbid, so Cholda was allowed to set up shop. In fact, also, so Chilkiah, Yoshia was the king. So he went with his entourage. The Yoshia Gufe Hechishav Yirmiyah Mishad Vilgaba. I think Chilkiah was also Navi. I'm a little bit confused. Okay, we'll have to see what that is. The Yoshia Gufa, how was he able to go to hold in a place where Yirmiyah was? Amri de Beirav Shilam Mifnesha Anashim Rachmani is saying. A women are more bnei Rachmanis, so she would daven stronger for the Rachman for the Rachmanis for the fate of Klal Yisrael. So even if they got a bad nevuah, she was gonna daven hard for them. Yirmiyah was he went to go back to Asas Shatim. No, how do we know they came back to Siv Kia Moicher El Hamim Kar Yashuv. So this is a nevuah that Yovel is going to be batal. So it's my after Yovel batal v'navi misnab all of shei batal. We're talking about future tense, and at the time of the nevuah, it was already batal. So how could it be? How could a navi say? Why would a navi say, "Oh, it's going to be batal"? It's already batal. Ella malam and sheyirmiyah chachziran. So the Yovel is only in place when the whole Klal Yisrael is together. So it's a raya that the 10 Shvatim came back, and then Yovel was reinstated, and then it was batal again. Now, Rashi says that Yovel wasn't completely reinstated. It's more of a, I'm not really sure. The Pratan, you have to look over there. Yeshio ben Amun Malach Aleim, and Yeshio, who was the king of Yehuda, also was Malach on the Aser Shatim. The Chsev Yom Ma'atzian Alaz, Ashani Raya. King Yeshio was in the town, and he asked, "What's the story with this cave?" We're going to see why you want to know in a second. This person's a man of God, and literally he's a Navi, and he came from Yehuda, and he told us all the stories of what you did in Beiskel. Now, what he did in Beiskel was he went on a crusade to kill anyone that was served a false of a desire there that who set up. So give me a second. Yeravim set up a mizbeach for Avodah there. So whoever served it, Yeshio went and burned their bones. So he wanted to know this tzion. What's the story? So they told me he's a good guy. It's okay. What does he have? Beiskel is not. Beiskel is where the Asesa Shatim went to, first of all, and it's also not in Yehuda. So what does he have over there? So you see that Yeshua was busy with Beiskel. In other words, he had Shlita on Beiskel, and that's where the Asesa Shatim was. You see that he was Melech on them also. Nachma Amamehacha. Gam Yehuda Shas Shas Katzer Lach Beshuvi Shavus Ami. When it says Yehuda is going to have a Shas Katzer, a strong rain when they are returned so it shows that it's referring to when the Aseres Shatim return, and Yehuda is going to be Malach on them. Esther, how do you know that Esther was the Nevi'ah? It says on the third day after the fasting, she went to go visit Achashverosh, and it says V'tabash Esther Malchus. It should say Bigdei Malchus Mibayilei Ela Shalavashta Ruach HaKodesh. It shows that she was Malbish herself with Ruach HaKodesh. Ksiv Hacha, a Tilbash, that she adorned herself. Ksiv Hasam. And this is a story with David and Shaul. I think that something's going on over there, but this ruach is not talking about ruach hakodesh. It's talking about a taiva. It's a ruach of taiva, but you see that it's not a lavsha is not a literal sense. So over here we're also taking it out of its pashas and we're attributing ruach hakodesh to it. Amar Rab Nachman lo ya. There's no woman on this, right? Okay, good. It's not nice for women to be in high power positions. There were two women that were in high positions, and the science and one was a weasel, which is cholda. She by Devira, she summoned Barak, which was the general of one of the armies in the Jewish army. So you see, she summoned somebody of high stature. It wasn't the appropriate thing for her to do, and she acted in a very haughty way. She didn't go to him; she summoned him to her. She was talking about the king, and she said Imrul Ish instead of I forgot which king it was, but she was referring to one of the kings of Israel, and she said in a very derogatory term. This is a very interesting one. She was from Yeshua when Yeshua died. So Ben Chachas is talking about Cholda's her ancestry, Harichos, and it says Ben Chachas. But when Yeshua was nifter, it says he was buried in B'simnas Charas, where you died in B'simnas Charas. So you see, Lashon Charchas Charas is the same idea to show that there's a relationship over there. Eisvei Rav Eina Saba asked Nachman Shemayin Nevi'im Mehem Kahanim Yotzim Mecharav Zayna. We learned that there are 8 Nevi'im and that the Kahanim they came from Rachav the Zayna. Ve'eluhein Neria Baruch V'Sraya Machseya Yirmiyah Chilkiah Anam of the Shalom. Yehuda Aimer Af Chulda Nevi'im Mibnei Bnei Shel Rachav Hazayna. So how do we know? Ksiv Hacha ben Tikva Ksiv Hasam as Tikvas Chut Hashani. By Rachav it says Chut Hashani. She tied some rope that they should know not to destroy her house, and that's where she lives. When they took over, she helped the spies take over the town, the city, the country, and in turn they were not going to destroy her house. And she chayes b'tshuva, and you'll see what happens in a second. Amalei Ein Asab of Amalei Pasya Ukama. Either a black pot, either referred to him by his name, or a blackened pot, which Rashi, I forgot where Rashi somehow else explains why this is not a gnai. We're saying the same thing. Like we're both our tires are complementing each other. Why? The Garia, the Nasba Yeshua. She was Megaya and she married Yeshua. So it's all these people were side from Rachav and side from Yeshua. It's not a stira adraba. It shows the whole story comes together. And we have Yeshua. We know that Yeshua didn't have any kids. Nun b'nai Yeshua b'nai. It says Nun b'nai of the previous verse in the previous passage. Yeshua b'nai. Yeshua was the son of Nun, but it doesn't say b'nai. But it doesn't continue the lineage. So you see that Yeshua didn't have any kids. B'nai havalei, b'nasan havalei. But he did have daughters. Bishleima in the Mefarshi. So we listed 7. I'm sorry, we listed 8. Shmoya Nevi'im, right? We listed 8 Nevi'im. So Yirmiyah, V'chanamel, and Baruch V'Sraya are all listed in the pasuk. Rashi says. Rashi brings down the pasuk. Ella, Avasai, but the other 4 in the pasuk, which is Chilkiah. Neria, Machasia, Chilkiah, and Baruch, and Shalom. How do you know them? So he said Kedula. These are all fathers and sons. There are 8, and each one is one for our fathers, 4 sons. The Amar Ula Kal Malkam Sheshmai V'Shem Abba B'Nevios. Whenever you reference a Navi and you quote his father in the same pasuk, B'Yedua Shehu Navi Ben Navi. So all these psukim that reference one person, even though it doesn't say Nevios by the father, it mentions. It means that the father was also Navi. So it's all beferish that all of them are Naviim. Shmai V'Loi Shem Abba. If he mentions his name without his father's name, B'Yedua Shehu Navi V'Loi Ben Navi. His father was not a Navi. Shmai V'Shem Irai Mefurash. If they say this guy is a Navi from Brooklyn, then you know he's from Brooklyn. And Shemai V'Loshemir B'Yedua Shum Yerushalayim. But if it doesn't say a name, if it says Stam, it means he's from Yerushalayim. If someone you don't know anything about them, and the pasuk is mefaret one of them for shvach, going Hashem Asher Haya al Tzefania ben Kushi ben Gedalia. So it references Tzefania that he had the word of Hashem, and it says his father and his grandfather. So therefore, you know that everyone mentioned the same parts again. The similar idea that they're being mentioned in a positive way, that they're also tzaddikim. That pasuk is talking about that he killed Gedalia ben Achikum, I think his name is, and that's the Gedalia, it's some Gedalia that we have. Yeah, it's Gedalia ben Achikam. So that's the person when he killed him. So he mentions him in a negative way, and that means his parents also negative. I remember Nachman. They changed it to Yitzchak. Malachi is Mordechai. Malachi is the Lashon Malach, and it refers to Mordechai that was Mishnah Malach. Meisa, in fact, the Gemara Baruch ben Neriah V'Sarya ben Machasya v'Daniel u'Mordechai v'Daniel u'Mordechai b'Lashon v'Chad Yitzchak Malachi. So you see again. So you see that what? It mentioned Mordechai and it mentioned Malachi. It's obviously not the same person. So you have to, and the Gemara says that's not correct. Tanya, Malachi is Zechariah. So who's Malachi? Zechariah Ezra. Wow. Malachi is Azariah. Malachi Shemai. His name is Malachi, but not, and his name is Malachi, and not talking about anyone else. Amar Nachman, Mistabra, command the Amar Malachi is Ezra. Why? T'chsib benevios. It says in Malachi, Bagdi Yehuda v'Tzayeva Nesesa v'Yisrael v'Yushalayim Kichil Yehuda Kaidish Hashem. Yehuda sinned and rebelled against God because they were Mechal Hashem Asher Oy v'Baal Bas El Necha. They loved and married women from another religion. So no, it says this avera, this idea in Malachi, and also Uman Efresh, Uman Afesh, Nashim Nachrias, and who was the one who went through and made sure that all the Nashim Nachrias were expelled. Ezra, the Chsiva Yas, V'yan Shechanya ben Yechiel, B'nei Ela Mayomer, Lezer Nachmu Ma'alnu, V'lekeinu V'noishev Nashim Nachrias. They admitted that they took women that were not from Yehuda, from the Bnei Israel. So you should see that they admitted to Ezra because he was the one who was dealing with this and he expelled those women. Sarah Avigail, he switches it to Rachav Avigail. Sarah Rachav Avigail, Hester Laman, the Esther. Laman the Amar Esther, we had a Gemara previously that said Esther was really not so pretty, and Hakadosh Baruch Hu gave her a special chutz chatzin, really she was just green. So Ma'abigetu Maya Vashi, so they put in Vashi instead of her. If someone heard the name Rachav, you were ma'ayir for the type of his nose. Yal b'kailot, you heard Yal singing. Abigail b'zchirasa, if you remembered her, if by remembering or mentioning her. Michal b'ashal b'riyasa, if you saw her, then you were also misad for his nose. Amar Rav Yitzchak call I'm Rachav miyad nekri. Amar Rav Nachman Anam Amina Rachav. So Rav Yitzchak says anyone who says Rachav becomes a Baal Keri right away. Now I would assume that Rav Nachman did not try this after he heard this memra. He must have tried it beforehand, and then now he's saying I did it once already and nothing happened. But he wouldn't try it once. I'm assuming that he wouldn't try it once Rav Yitzchak said his memra. I'm late. I'm talking about somebody who knew her. So if you recognize, if you knew her, you have what to do with her, and then you said her name twice, it would cause a person to have discharge and he become a Bakari right away. That's called my Amar, what he yelled? What was he screaming? Rav Amar, Gava Haman Achashverosh. Haman is worse than Achashverosh. Because Achashverosh never liked the Jews, but he never was Ayman al Das to kill them. Like we said before, he was afraid of them. And Haman was much worse than him, and he had the chutzpah to try to kill us all. Shmuel Amar, Givar Malki Ilah Mimalka Ta'ata, which is the Lashon Saginar of saying really the opposite, that really the Mordechai is screaming that the Malchus down here is Ki'ilu stronger than the Malchus upstairs, referring to Kadosh Baruch Hu. But this Hamalka, and it says that something happened inside of her. For the Marvet Tischalchal, Amarav Shapir Sanida. She was so scared. This is talking about Esther. This is going back to Esther walking into the Beis Hamelech. So she became so afraid that she was Pirsanida. But she lost control of her bowels. She didn't go to the bathroom. Interesting story, but not now. But took Esther lahasach. Amarav hasach zed Daniel. Why did he call hasach? Shechasachu. By Belshazzar, he was a big knocker, and in Achashverosh's court, you see he's a messenger boy. So it's a big downgrade. Shmuel Amar no, Shekol Devei Malchus Nechtachin Alpev. He still kept the stature, and everything that was in the Malchus was still decided from him. That's Mazeh Mazeh Amar Yitzchak Shalchalei. Esther sent to her, said to Mordechai, Shema Abu Yisrael al Chamisha Chumshadara. This al-zeh is reference to Chamisha Chumshadara. Tachsib behem mizeh him ksuvim. It says regarding the Chamisha Chumshadara that on mizeh him ksuvim. So that's a reference to Chamisha Chumshadara. Yigid l'Mordechai as the very Esther. The words were told. The very Esther were told to Mordechai. The ilu ihu like azal the gabe, but he did not return a message. Why? We learn from here. We don't spread bad news. Late Chanas is called Yehudim, the Goymer, that's the beginning of the pasuk, right? And then at the end it says that Shaloi Kadas. She's going to do it. What's not regular. Rav Abba Shaloi Kadas. Why? Because Shebechol Yaim, Shebechol Yaim, the Yaim was Ba'inus. Ad Achshav Ba'inus. Ba'achshav B'ratzin. Now I'm going B'ratzin. So that's Shaloi Kadas. That's the I'm thinking of a word, but that's the deviation from the norm. The kasha avadti base abba, because just like she lost her parents when she was very young, now she's not going to either because she's going b'ratzin. Even though she's doing it to save Klai, so it's very interesting study over there. How if a woman's allowed to give herself to save other people, there's a lot of interesting Hashem there. Rabbi David Lichtenstein once gave a share in it, very interesting. And the Marsha I think says B'chlal, the whole thing is not neged to learn from because it's from Ksuvim. We don't learn from Ksuvim, but it's a very interesting subject. It's the game Israeli army. The point is that she says, now I'm going to B'ratzin, and I'm going to lose. I'm not going to be able to be back with my husband. He said, we're gonna fast 3 days, and one of the days was Pesach. So he's being about to Pesach. So that's the lashon of Vayavar. Shmuel Amar the Avar Arkuma Demai. He went over a body of water. There's a few different shatim there. I didn't really get clarity on it, what it means, what the significance is. One point is that he managed everything was calculated 100% lishma. Right. We just had this. The same we just mentioned right before that this is talking about that she was in Ruch. This is all members of Rabbi Lazar. I have a few of them now. Alti Berchas had Yikal Benach Shavei Shnei Gedolia had their Berchom Shnei had Yotes when this came to him and they were miskoyim. Two simple people gave brachas to two great people and they were miskoyim. Elohim David Daniel David the Berachim Aravna, even though he was a king, we're going to see a few of these are kings. All these are kings, I think, and they're considered hadiyat because they're talking to someone in spiritually much lower stature. Aravna the Siva Yom Aravna Al Melach. He tells that Hashem's going to bench him, and we see that Hashem's going to be with him. He gives him a bracha. Daniel, the bracha de Yavesh, also a king. The Siva Alikach the Ant Palach le V'Sedira who Yeshezevinach, because this God that you always serve, he's going to save you. This is referring to when Daniel was thrown into the lion's den. Now, even though he wasn't saved because of the bracha, he was saved because he was the tzaddik. But the fact that it was mentioned shows that there's some chashivas there, and not to take it lightly. Also, the hafuch. Don't if someone curses you, don't take it lightly. Again, a king's for Sarah is low. Sarah is not a queen, but Baruchnius he was lower. He says to Sarah, who lach but this kind of bizarre. It's going to be a covering for your eyes, and it was this kind of bizarre. He Kizak and Yitzchak, but by Yitzchak his eyes got covered, so that his color was mukayim by Yitzchak. Adam Shayface. First, the person arranges the bowl and then he adds the water. Yeah, Baruch Baruch does the reverse. The call titan mayim bashemayim, and then the end of the pasuk is he says he puts all the water in shemayim, and the end of the pasuk is and then he puts all the clouds in to gather the water. So first he puts the water, then he puts the clouds. The clouds are the basins kilu to hold the water. Whoever, this is again probably one of those famous lines in the world, that anyone who says something to Shem Amra, you may be gulish. This that he saved, the plot of the Bixim we learned yesterday was Mordechai told Esther, and the fact that Esther repeated it to B'Shem Mordechai, that created the start of the shift of Geula. When a tzaddik passes, the only people who lose them is his generation. Wherever this gem is, it could be in the sewer, it could be wherever it is, it's still called the gem. The gem didn't lose any value in and of itself. But who lost it? Only the owners of the diamond can't say they have a diamond anymore. But the diamond is a diamond. I'm sure we could find that a mashal to ourselves, and no matter where we find ourselves, we still have to recognize that we're not lost, and we don't identify by the surroundings. And a gem in a garbage is still a gem. You have to get out of the garbage. It's a separate story, but it doesn't change our mahus be'etzem. The v'chol zeh nen shavali, Amar Rav Elazar, Amar Rav Chanina, again Rav Elazar Chanina, b'shah shara Haman es Mordechai, Yoshe b'shar Melech, Amar kol zeh nen shavali. The Amar Rav Chizda zeh ba the this one comes from a place of wealth, referring to Mordechai. And Haman comes from a place of poverty. Because at one point, Haman sold himself to Mordechai. He sold himself for bread. They were heads of two legions of armies, and Haman used to party. A long story, but the point is that he sold himself to Haman, to Mordechai, to be able to feed his chevra. So he used to get so upset because he got promoted to Mishnah Melech, but he was reminded when he saw Mordechai, he was reminded that is not worth anything. Melamed. With that being dashin zeh, Melamed shekol genazav shel Eiser Rasha chakukim al libay, that his whole fortune was etched on his heart. And so the Maral says, I think it's Maral, either that it was mamish etched on a stone, like he had a stone with all his passwords, like what's that called? New seed phrases. Or he was so dovek with his money that it was mamish on his mind that he could say zeh. Zeh is a lashon that we point. We say and a lot of things that we say in Torah zeh is a lashon that we're pointing to something. So it has to be. It was so real to him. It was so dovek with his mind that he had to say zeh. So Shirayis Mordechai Yasher b'Shar Melech Amachol zeh and Nishol. To point to it directly, even though he said this line to his when he got home, but that's what it's referring to. Amar Rav Elazar, Amar Rav Chanina. Tzaddik is going to be the Torah, his shechina to Mishara from every single tzaddik. But Yema, who is either referring to after Tchias Mesim or Lam Haba. Yashem Tzavaka Teres Tzvi, Marla Teres Tzvi L'Tzvias Tefara. That's the end of the pasuk. La'isen Tzivyaynei L'Mitzapim Tefartai. That's a play on the words, and it's saying to someone who does his Teres Tzvi is Tzivyaynei, right? L'Mitzapim Tefartai is Teferes, right? But it's not exact taich, and Teres Tzvi it's someone who does his will and is waiting for his Teferes. I would say maybe everyone. To only somebody who puts himself to the side and makes himself like Shirayim, that he's zeicha to this crown, to this shush of Shechina. L'urach mishpat zeh adan yitzray. To that someone who's done his Yitzhar to makes himself to tshuva. V'leish mishpat zeh adan din emes lamitai. This is someone who mamish checks the Edom again and again and makes sure that the entire goes 100% emes. Someone who fights the Yitzhara is Mitzgaba is Yitzhara. Meshive Melchama is Shenaisim and Naisim Melchamto Shel Torah. And there's somebody who was being Isaac in Torah. Sha'ara, Elu Tamidacham Shemashkim Ma'ivim, but you can see is about the Midrashes. So the following pasuk is we're being dashed in this pasuk. The following pasuk. What's the difference between these and these? Amalei say the Mitzvah then answers that Gam Elu b'yayin shagu b'seicher to paku palila. That's the next pasuk following the pasuk we just said. And it's either that he's being done, he's saying, okay, fine, so then the Jews who are not learning also have to get punished, or he's already, once the table's turned, he's piling onto the Goyim also. And they get sicker and they do avers when they're eating and drinking. Ein paku ella gehenim shenemar we just had by Abigail telling David Melech that it shouldn't be a stumbling for you. Because in Shemais that we're going to pay whatever the judges say. So you see the right for these two types. So these two types. Fine. The time is Amr lady Kim Shegil Beis Hatzalamim Nistalku Heimena Shchina. When she got to the base of her Zara in the palace, all of a sudden she felt that the Shechina left her. Amra Keli Lamazav Tani. This is Kapitel Chavbeis. This is Esther's Kapitel. Why did you forsake? Why did you leave me? So she's saying, this is not part of the passage, but she's saying, Shema Atadan Al Shegi Kimeziv Al Einis Karatin. Are you doubting me what I'm doing now? I'm not Einis. I have to go. Even though she's not Einis in the literal sense of the word Einis, but she's not doing what she wants to do. She feels that she's forced to do this to save Klal Yisrael. Or maybe previously in the pasuk, in the kapitel, she calls Achashverosh a dog. Shenema Hatzilu Mecharev Nafshi Miyad Kelav Yichidasi. She's referring to Achashverosh and calls him a dog. And even though he's a Rasha, but the fact that she's a melech, that he's a melech, and the melech is still some shemet. There's some like Leib Melachim. I'm not sure what the pasuk is, but you know what I'm referring to. Hashem, something like that, but it's referring. No, it's still some shemet. Maybe there's some malchus that she has to respect. See, later on in the kapitel, she's like chayzer and she calls him an Arya. Three malachim came to her in that time. One to pick up her neck. One to be that she should find extra favor in Achashverosh's eyes. Want to extend the Shabbat. How long did it extend? Now she needed her neck picked up because she was fasting. She's very weak, and presumably she was wearing her crown. It's very heavy. How long did he extend the Shabbat? Did the Malach extend the Shabbat? We're going to have a bunch of different shittas. There's some interesting Torah on why I didn't see it. Ein Sham. 2 amas. It was 2 amas. Al Shtei Masrei and went to 12. Amri La Al Sheshasei to 16. Amri La Al Esrim Al Arba 24. Vasisatana Al Shishim to 60 amas. The same machlekes the Basia's hand. How long it extended to get Mashrim. The same machlekes is about Shem Sham is talking about like Malach he picked up a mountain and his teeth went through the mountain and ended up that Moshe Rabbeinu hit him. I think that's Chsiv Shina V'Sham Shibarta v'Amar Shlagish. I think Shibarta Ella Sheribafta that you made them expand. Rabbi Bar Oifen Amar Mishum Rabbi Lazar Sheshama Merabbi Nasayim went to 200 amos. The Yama La Hamelach Laster Hamalch Lester Hamalch Mabakashasek Ad Chatzi Amachos V'Teyas. Chatzi Amachos like Kol Amachos. For Loidava Shechaitzitz Lamachos Maniu Binyan Beis Ha Mikdash. That she's referring to that asking for whatever you want except for building the Beis Hamikdash. Now, why do you think that she's going to build the Mikdash if she didn't say she was Jewish? I'm not sure. But interesting point is why did she have to extend the Shabbat? Why was that important? In other words, why she could have just went and grabbed it. saying that she was so scared she thought Achashverosh was mad at her for showing up unannounced. She had such a pacha that she wasn't able to continue to walk. So the Malach had to extend the Shabbat to her. Shkoch everyone for joining. Mitzvah Shem. Tomorrow night we will continue on Daf Tezvav on the days on the bottom.